What if I told you that Disney once made a movie so ambitious, so different, that it nearly broke their entire animation formula?
Jimmy Christmas, it's a machine!
A movie that cost $120 million featured explosions that would make Michael Bay jealous, and had more adult themes than most PG-13 films. Today, we're diving deep into Atlantis: The Lost Empire, the movie that Disney desperately wants you to forget, but absolutely shouldn't. Picture this. It's 1996. Disney is absolutely dominating. The Lion King just became the highest-grossing animated film of all time. Pocahontas and The Hunchback of Notre Dame are pulling in massive numbers. Disney's on top of the world, and they're feeling invincible. But here's the thing about being on top. You start looking for the next mountain to climb. Enter two guys who would change everything: Gary Truesdale and Kirk Wise, the directors behind Beauty and the Beast. They walk into Disney with a pitch that's completely insane for 1996. What if we made a Disney movie with no songs, no romance subplot, and enough action sequences to rival Raiders of the Lost Ark? The executives should have laughed them out of the room. Instead, they greenlit one of Disney's most expensive hand-drawn animated films ever made. Let me paint you a picture of what Atlantis was supposed to be. This wasn't your typical Disney princess story. This was Disney trying to create their own Indiana Jones, their own Star Wars, their own everything that wasn't Disney. The story follows Milo Thatch, a linguist and cartographer who's obsessed with finding the lost city of Atlantis. And here's where it gets interesting. Milo isn't your typical Disney hero. He's awkward, he's a nerd, he gets excited about dead languages. In 2001, this character was revolutionary. But the real ambition shows in the world building. Disney didn't just create Atlantis, they created an entire civilization. They developed a working Atlantean language, they designed technology that bridged ancient mysticism with steampunk aesthetics, they crafted a mythology so detailed that most of it never even made it into the final film, and the animation? Forget everything you know about Disney's house style. Atlantis was drawn with bold, angular lines inspired by comic book legend Mike Mignola, the creator of Hellboy. This wasn't the soft, rounded look of classic Disney. This was sharp, modern, and completely unprecedented. The underwater sequences were painstakingly crafted with cutting-edge techniques that pushed Disney's animation technology to its limits. Now, here's where the story gets really interesting. Disney didn't just want to make one movie, they wanted to build an empire. And I mean that literally. Before Atlantis even hit theaters, Disney had already planned a direct-to-video sequel, a TV series for Disney Channel, theme park attractions at both Disneyland and Disney World, video games across multiple platforms, an entire merchandise line. They were so confident in Atlantis that they'd already started pre-production on the sequel before the first movie was even finished. That's not confidence, that's borderline delusion. But here's what makes this fascinating. Disney was actually ahead of their time. They were trying to create what we now call a cinematic universe, 5 years before Marvel even existed as a movie studio. The problem? They were building their universe on a foundation they'd never tested. Behind the scenes, Atlantis was facing problems that would make any production manager break out in cold sweats. First, there was the budget. $120 million in 2001 money. That's roughly $215 million today. For comparison, Shrek, which came out the same year, cost $60 million and absolutely demolished the box office. And then there was the elephant in the room, the target audience. Disney had built their empire on family films that appealed to everyone from 3 to 93. Atlantis was clearly aimed at older kids and adults. Some critics noted that certain scenes might be too intense for very young children, while older audiences weren't sure what to make of this new direction. Disney had created something genuinely unique, but in doing so, they'd stepped outside their proven formula. But the real killer? The release date, June 15, 2001. 4 weeks after Shrek premiered. 1 month after Shrek would prove that animation didn't need Disney to succeed. Okay, let's talk about something that doesn't get enough credit: the sheer technical innovation of Atlantis. This movie pioneered techniques that wouldn't become standard until years later. The integration of 2D and 3D animation was seamless in ways that most studios are still trying to perfect. The particle effects for the underwater scenes were remarkably advanced for their time. pushing the boundaries of what hand-drawn animation could achieve. And the art direction? Mike Mignola's influence created something completely unique in Disney's catalog. Every frame looks like it could be a panel from a graphic novel. The character designs are bold and stylized in ways that Disney had never attempted before. Here's the crazy part. Techniques that Atlantis pioneered are now standard in modern animation. The way they use digital ink and paint, their approach to lighting effects, even their method of integrating CGI vehicles with hand-drawn characters. Studios are still using these methods today. Atlantis wasn't just ambitious storytelling-wise, it was a technical revolution disguised as a Disney movie. Now let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture. Because Atlantis didn't fail in a vacuum. 2001 was a weird year for animation. Shrek had just proven that you could make fun of Disney and win. Monsters, Inc. was about to show that Pixar could do emotion and comedy better than anyone. And traditional, hand-drawn animation? It was starting to look expensive and old-fashioned. But there's something else happening here that's really important. Atlantis was Disney's attempt to mature with their audience. Kids who grew up on The Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast were now teenagers and young adults. Disney was trying to keep them around. The problem was, they were also trying to attract new, younger audiences at the same time, and you can't serve two masters. June 15th, 2001. Atlantis: The Lost Empire hits theaters across America. Disney's marketing machine is in full swing. TV spots are everywhere, Happy Meal toys are flying off the shelves. The hype is real. Opening weekend, $20.3 million. Not terrible, but not great for a movie that cost $120 million to make. Week 2, the numbers drop hard. By the end of its theatrical run, Atlantis had made just $186 million worldwide. That sounds like a lot, but remember, this movie cost $120 million to make, plus substantial marketing costs. The film performed well below what Disney reportedly needed to turn a profit. Critics were mixed. Some praised the visual innovation and mature themes. Others complained about pacing issues and underdeveloped characters. The problem? Not enough people saw it. The real damage was in how Disney interpreted the failure. Disney's executives looked at Atlantis and seemed to conclude that audiences didn't want experimental Disney movies. Whether this was the right lesson to learn is debatable, but it's the lesson they took. In my opinion, Atlantis didn't just fail, it seemed to scare Disney away from bold, creative risks. But here's where the story gets interesting again, because while Atlantis failed at the box office, it succeeded in ways that nobody expected. Home video sales were solid. The movie found its audience on DVD, where people could appreciate the details and craftsmanship without the pressure of a theatrical experience. More importantly, Atlantis influenced a generation of animators and filmmakers. You can see its DNA in everything from Avatar, The Last Airbender, to How to Train Your Dragon. The visual style, the world-building approach, the mature themes, they all trace back to Atlantis. So here we are, over 20 years later, and it's time to ask the big question. Was Atlantis really a failure? From a business perspective, absolutely. Disney lost money, canceled projects, and changed their entire approach to animation because of this movie. But from an artistic perspective, from a legacy perspective, Atlantis might be one of Disney's most important films. The tragedy isn't that Atlantis failed. The tragedy is that its failure convinced Disney to stop trying. We might have had an entire decade of creative risk-taking instead of sequels and remakes. Atlantis: The Lost Empire represents everything that makes Disney both great and frustrating. Today, in an era of Disney remakes and franchise films, Atlantis feels more revolutionary than ever. It's a reminder that animation can be experimental, that Disney stories can be mature, and that sometimes the biggest risks lead to the most interesting art. So here's my challenge to you. Go watch Atlantis again. Or, if you've never seen it, watch it for the first time. Don't watch it as a Disney movie. Watch it as a piece of experimental animation that happened to be made by Disney. I guarantee you'll see something you've never seen before.